Women over 40 do not have a discipline problem or a motivation problem. And you may be disagreeing with me right here. Most women really do have a problem with a nervous system that has never been able to regulate. And that inability to regulate your nervous system gets in the way of most people being able to execute the actions needed to be able to do the things that compound in order to create change. There is so much on the internet right now of all these things that people need to do. They talk about the systems they need to make within their body. You just need to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep in a day. You need to get your workouts in. You need to make sure that your workouts have this forward momentum and that it's executed towards this goal. And you just have to get your protein in and your fiber in. And yeah, there's a ton of information out there of what to do, right? Most people are not starving for what to do. There's plenty of that out there, right? But they do struggle with, how do I get myself to actually do it? It's that moment in time, right? And people will say then, well, now it's time for hard decisions, right? You have to make the hard decisions, and sometimes you have to do what's hard. That's great, right? That answer drives me nuts, right? Because it is so dismissive. Yes, we have to eventually build the capacity to be able to do hard things, but there's a whole space in between that of what is happening to people, why they can't do those hard things. And what happens at this point, at this junction, is we can talk to ourselves and say, I just need to do hard things, right? I just need to be somebody that does hard things. And then usually what happens is people start becoming hypercritical of themselves, hyperbullying of themselves, and they pretty much beat the crap out of themselves in order to do those hard things. And they may be able to do that for a period of time, right? And they may be able to make progress there, but they're not going to be able to sustain this way or this relationship or this internal sense within them to be able to do that for the long haul. And the long haul is the rest of your life. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer. I own a women's gym for the past 15 years, teach women weight training. I'm a therapist, licensed therapist, and I have spent years with women getting them to get to a point that this becomes a normal way of life, right? Not something that they have to grind through and push through. We want this relationship with our bodies, with food, with health, and everything to be very congruent, right? Not something we're battling against, because that's not going to last for the long term. And there's so much information out there. There is so much of what to do, right? And then the answer to when you don't do that, it's, well, you just have to do hard things. I said that to myself years ago. I'm 52 years old now, 52 and a half. There was a period of time in my life that it was so hard for me, I couldn't even pay my bills. Not because I didn't have the money. I had the money. I literally couldn't get myself to sit down and just pay the stupid parking ticket. It was too hard for me. And it's that place within somebody's nervous system that's where the healing needs to occur before they could ever get to the point that they actually do things on a compounding effect. Sleeping 7 hours to 9 hours at night, doing my protein, meal prepping, doing all these actions, right? These behavioral actions. I knew I had to pay that bill. I knew if I didn't pay it, I was going to get interest fined or whatever, okay? I knew that was going to happen. I was literally frozen, okay? And that came from a year. I'm not going to go into my whole personal history, but some brief things. I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I learned early on that I have a people pleaser, right? I learned how to flee things, right? And when it was real bad, I learned how to freeze, okay? Those things, we carry those into today, right? And we're living in, a place that threats are constantly coming at us. Never mind all the information that's thrown at people. You have to do this, and you have to make sure you avoid gluten, and you have to make sure that your food is clean, and don't forget about the carrageenan or whatever that, there's so much. It's so much, right? And yeah, We have to just be able to do those simple things, because if we just do the simple things for a long period of time, you'll make progress. But the problem is, doing the simple things for the long period of time requires a nervous system that feels safe. And if we don't feel safe on a fairly consistent basis, it is really hard to make progress. And if you do make progress when you don't feel safe, it's going to be fear-based. It is not going to be a strength-based progress. For those of you that feel unmotivated, or like you just don't have the discipline, or you just fail at all of this, I can probably gather 9 out of 10 of you, okay, have some type of relationship in your nervous system that literally prevents that from happening. And there's usually a history there behind everything. I've worked with enough women, over 1,200 women, to realize that most people who struggle with motivation and consistency, okay, have this big thing over here, if not many, right, that they haven't quite dealt with, okay? And that had a ripple effect, which then showed up as skipping the gym, missing workouts, eating foods that were off their plan, unable to say no, okay? A whole bunch of stuff that got commingled into something that sounded so simplistic as you just have to work out 3 days a week, eat your protein, get your fiber in, and do all these things. I can tell you from my experience, it took me a long time how to notice that my nervous system was getting in my way. And that was tricky, right? But the way out, once I got to that place, that's when things became strength-based. That's when things stuck. That's when the language I was using, right, to keep myself consistent no longer sounded like, you suck, you can't get it together, you'll be forever a procrastinator, you will never be able to make it happen. That was old language, right? It took a whole different way to be able to get myself to do what I needed to do, and actually to be able to grow a business, right? Get a master's degree, second one later in life, right? Grow a second business, start doing this. That person, this person who does this stuff, was way different than the person who felt like a procrastinator, felt like a failure, felt like this. And the answer was never, well, I have to do hard things. I knew I had to do hard things, okay? That wasn't the problem, right? I knew what I had to do, right? I just had to find a better way to make myself actually do that. And that's what I found for myself, is what strength training did for me, right? And it was completely by accident, because I noticed that after I strength trained, my nervous system actually calmed down. And I got a lot of that angstiness, that energy out of me. Mine showed up as anxiety. Some people's, it shows up as like depression or sadness or hopelessness, right? A lot of that would leave temporarily, right? And then I had a moment of clarity and I'd be like, oh, okay, things look different right now. Then I could pay that bill. Then I could, do those taxes. Then I could do, right, the stuff that I kept avoiding, right? I definitely had an avoidant part of me. But it was after I was able to get some of that out. And strength training, right, now that I could look back with hindsight, it was doing that movement, right? Making my body move like that, move heavy things, which helped my nervous system then shift. What we hear today is, oh, move your body, do these things, right? Do these things, do the tasks, do the tasks, do the tasks. But nobody teaches people how to notice within them, right? What happens after you do this habit? Oh, and some people may say, I just felt really bad about myself. That's something to notice, right? Because that's something we have to work on shifting. Or some people may notice, gosh, I feel really great about myself after I work out. I felt better. I felt relieved. Great, right? Because then we notice, right, a shift. We could notice this shift. And then we can start to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So this is a super brief video, right? And it's not going to be able to explain everything. But I just want to validate to you If you struggle with motivation and consistency, especially if you're a woman over 40 who has to deal with perimenopause and hormones and everything all over the place, and you keep failing at those action steps that you hear all the time right now, you just have to do this, just do this, just do this. And if you're like, why can't I do it? Please don't beat yourself up. It's not about that. It is really easy to tell people what to do. It is a skill to teach people to notice within them why they can't do it. And it's also a skill to teach someone how to shift their nervous system to get them to be able to do it. Because motivation and willpower is the result of a nervous system that has learned how to regulate and stabilize. That's motivation. It is not just do hard things. So hope this helps. Okay, take care. Till next time. Bye.